its own website, St. John Fisher College is described as an independent liberal arts institution in the Catholic tradition of American higher education. The college emphasizes liberal learning for students in traditional academic disciplines, as well as for those in more directly career-oriented fields. We faculty are fond of talking about the liberal arts base upon which all learning at Fisher is grounded. But what do we mean by the liberal arts? And are the liberal arts still relevant in an age when professional degrees have become increasingly popular? We discuss these questions and more with the Dean and the Associate Dean of the School of Arts and Sciences here at St. John Fisher College. Stay with us. Hello, I'm Dr. Lauren Vicker of the Communication Journalism Department. Today on our community forum, we are discussing the relevance of the liberal arts to higher education. Joining me today to discuss this important topic are Dr. David Pate, Dean of the School of Arts and Sciences and Associate Vice President of Academic Affairs, and Dr. Barbara Lowe, Associate Professor and Associate Dean of the School of Arts and Sciences. Dr. Pate came to Fisher as a professor of economics, and Dr. Lowe is also a faculty member in the philosophy department and has served as director of the honors program here at the college. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thanks. My pleasure.
So Dr. Lowe is a philosophy professor. Maybe I'll start with you. And could you tell us what the traditional view of the liberal arts has been?
Sure. Liberal arts has always been about trying to get yourself ready to become an engaged citizen in society. Back in ancient Greece and ancient Rome, the idea was to become versed in certain knowledge bases and skills, really, in order to engage in conversation and debate in society. And it was really just the citizens of society that were allowed to sort of get this education, and that is in part what allowed them to be defined as free human beings and engaged in society in that way, allowed them to sort of define themselves that way as well. So, but that really hasn't changed in some ways, because the idea still is to engage yourself in society based on your education and what you're able to offer in that way. It used to be that I think there were 7 skills or knowledge bases that people needed to have back in the medieval times, coming from the ancient times, and they included like grammar and logic, rhetoric, music was part of that, arithmetic, sort of the things that we still sort of have it different ways, but today we sort of define the liberal arts as being a combination of social sciences, humanities, and sciences. And I think that's sort of where we take it from in terms of our liberal arts college here at Fisher. So, but the goal remains the same, to help individuals become versed in skills and knowledge that allows them to be more engaged in society.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Dr. Pate, if I were a parent bringing a prospective student to visit Fisher, how would you make the case for why they should study at a liberal arts institution?
I think the first thing I have to do with parents, and we actually just met with several hundred parents coming in for Great Beginnings over the last couple of weeks, and the parents they're interested in their sons and daughters, I guess, fulfilling our mission. We talk about preparing students for lives of civic, intellectual, and professional integrity. So the very mission of the college since its founding has been to help develop a well-rounded individual in all those facets. And as I speak with parents, they're not interested in sending their son and daughter to a vocational program, but on the other hand, they are very concerned that there's a practical result that comes out of the education. And so in speaking to the Liberal Arts Foundation of Fisher in general, but also the liberal arts majors that we offer within the School of Arts and Sciences, the story that I put forward to the parents is that your son and daughter is investing their time and energy. You're investing your time and certainly quite a bit of money in an education that's not, it needs to have a short-term payoff, but it also needs to have a long-term payoff. And that by studying it in the arts and sciences, it gives you an opportunity for the ideal balance, because clearly if you are going to progress as a professional, if you're going to progress in your community, civic affairs, church, family, etc., if you're going to have a life of the mind, that's a lifelong pursuit. It's not something that simply ends after 4 years. And that has traditionally been the forte of the arts and sciences. A potential weakness of that approach is that even though students are well prepared to thrive through the rest of their lives, how do you get started in that? And that's one of the major concerns of parents. And so what I do is I talk about the efforts that we make within the arts and sciences to make sure not only that students have the opportunity to go deep within a discipline, there's something inherently valuable, intrinsically valuable about understanding the world, not simply as a collection of facts, but understanding the context and being able to not only understand within certain perspectives or ways of knowing, but to understand how they interrelate with one another. That's inherently valuable. There's all sorts of information available on Google, the internet. So having access to information is not what the issue is. It's how do you use it, what is useful, et cetera. And so with the arts and sciences education at Fisher, and specifically talking about the majors within the School of Arts and Sciences, that is something that we will never lose, just the inherent value of it. But knowledge in and of itself, while valuable, is more valuable when it can be applied. And so what we look for our students to do is to go deep within the discipline, but to engage in experiential opportunities consistent with their aspirations. And that could be internships, it could be study abroad, service learning, it could be working on the college newspaper, it could be engaged in summer undergraduate research. And so I think what we do, I think quite well here, is to not only prepare students to give them the tools to be lifelong learners, to continue to be able to navigate their way through all those environments, but also as they prepare to leave for Fisher, to come out with their resume, to come out with their letters, but to be ready to tell a story. What have they experienced? What can they bring as an individual applying to graduate school or an individual applying for an entry-level job? Mm-hmm. And so I think the arts and sciences at Fisher, I think, are eminently pragmatic in that sense.
Right, right. Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. So Dr. Lowe, could you talk a little bit about what the liberal arts education looks like at Fisher? Because it's not just students who are majoring in the liberal arts, but everyone gets a liberal arts base at Fisher. Can you talk about what the components of that would be?
So even if a student doesn't choose to major in one of the disciplines in arts and sciences, they're still going to initially take, for example, a learning community, as well as research-based writing, and then beyond that, the general core beyond the first couple sets of the core curriculum. And so the core curriculum is just a set of 15 courses that all students have to take, regardless of their major, regardless of their school. Mm-hmm. And these courses are really steeped in the liberal arts, in the traditions and in the skill sets that are traditionally needed in order to go out. Not even traditionally, I mean, that's just part of what you need to engage in the world, regardless of your major, regardless of your career. And really, I think of it as developing certain habits of being, habits of mind that individual fosters and hones as part of their core curriculum, and then applies it within the arts and sciences or within their major, say in nursing, education, their career, whatever that might be in the future. So while they might not use their philosophy content knowledge every day beyond what they've taken and what they've studied for or written a paper on, but they will use that skill that they developed and honed, the ways of thinking, the question asking, the writing skills that they've developed. And this is really, I mean, if we get pragmatic about it, not only does it make you a more enriched, happier life, I would argue as a philosopher I have to say that, and I believe that, but it also makes you someone who's able to go out in the world and engage it in a thoughtful way with skills that are transferable everywhere. And so,
And you are also the coordinator of the first year program.
Right.
Do you notice the students coming in, are there still a lot of students who are undeclared? Are they picking liberal arts majors? Are they picking more career oriented? What kind of trends are you seeing now?
I think what's probably the trend that is most noteworthy is one I saw on a sign walking in on campus, but also have heard many times before, is that I think it's 80% of students change their major at least once, right? So even if they come to Fisher declared as one major, it's very likely that they're going to become another major or add another major in addition to the one they've declared, or other minors. And I see that as a great thing, that a student coming in undeclared is someone ready to really embrace learning for learning's sake and really kind of open to different options. And it's how they package that in the end, not so much the degree that's stamped on a piece of paper that allows them to go out in the world and be engaged.
Now, you mentioned learning community, and that might be a term that's not familiar to everyone. So could you describe what that is? Because that's the experience the students get their very first semester here at Fisher.
Right. So the Learning Community program is students take 2 courses that are clustered together on a common theme. And it could be any theme. We have everything from exploring brave new worlds to gender issues to history-based learning communities to sports. So that the theme really doesn't matter as far as pedagogically I'm concerned. It's really about the skills that they developed through taking those courses. That's not to say the content doesn't matter, because it does, but it's more in line with what Dr. Pate was saying, was that they learn to think about things and go deep. And not so deep in the first year program, but they begin to get an idea of what it means to read critically and thoughtfully and to write about something in a more nuanced way than maybe they have in the past. So the learning community in that sense is a vehicle to sort of develop those skills. And then the idea there is that they can take those skills with them beyond and into their major and into their life, and really be able to sort of apply them in ways that are meaningful beyond just that experience, which is meaningful in itself. So,
and we should mention too that they take their classes together, the students who have these linked courses, so they meet a lot of people right away, which is nice from a social point of view.
Absolutely, right.
Too,
and if they live on campus, they're also in close proximity to each other, so there's a big social benefit on top of the academic benefits.
So that's great.
So
do you find that students are influenced by their parents in terms of picking a major for liberal arts or something career-oriented?
I don't know if I can speak to that as far as what I know for sure, but intuitively I would say absolutely, but not just their parents, but by experiences they've had in their life up to this point. I think they only know what they've experienced, and therefore part of our job, this is why I love it when they come in undeclared, but part of our job is to sort of open up that possibility for them for all sorts of different things.
How many options there actually are.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. So, Dr. Pate, I know that you supervise the Career Center, and you have an opportunity to talk to a lot of people who are hiring our graduates. Do you think they have a positive impression of the liberal arts, or a favorable image of the students who are coming out with liberal arts degrees, as opposed to students who are in a professional field?
Yeah, I think what we have to keep in mind is that students coming out of college, I guess I might classify that there are some who are generalists and some who are specialists. And so, for instance, an individual who's going to become a registered nurse would study that particular curriculum, and it's very clear what they're going to do. The same thing goes with accounting. In many other areas of the college, in large parts of the arts and sciences, but even in general business and some of these others, individuals are prepared to go into certain career areas, certain sectors, but they're not necessarily stepping into a particular track on a profession. And so as such, many employers look for students to be ready to learn, and but also ready to be able to deliver with certain capabilities. If a student goes into many positions, I hate to say this, but in some ways it may not even matter what their particular major is. If they have an innate curiosity, there are some if an individual is willing to take on problems, situations where the solution is not obvious, that's a person, that's a trait that we certainly look to further in the arts and sciences. If they can figure out what the question is, if they can communicate effectively, if they need to solve a problem, if they can gather the appropriate information and have some analytical structure. And that structure could be quantitative, it could be a logical structure. And if they can communicate their conclusions in a diverse and technologically rich environment, that if a student can do that, they're going to be successful. And clearly, one of the things that we're seeing, not to speak specifically to the arts and sciences, but we're seeing it in the field of business and some of the other areas, is that employer organizations, as well as some of the schools putting these students out, stress the importance of their students being able to communicate effectively, to write, communicate, to analyze. And so it is the ability to be valuable and ready to step into a job set to develop is not unique to the arts and sciences. It's not unique to schools of business and others. I think that's the philosophy that Fisher embraces, and certainly it works for us in the arts and sciences. Again, it is in times like we've experienced in the last couple of years with a tight labor market, certainly people become more concerned and start to look for potentially safer majors or majors that have clearer career paths. And but what we see is that while the career path for many majors, again, arts and sciences as well as some of the others, may not be immediately obvious, it is eminently doable. And really what it takes is for the student to begin thinking early, where would I like to go? What sort of story? When a student applies to graduate school or to employment, they will have their resume, they will have the ticket that gets them in, but what kind of story are they willing to tell? And it turns out that I think arts and sciences majors do equally well or better in many cases with that ability to tell the narrative. In some sense, if you come out of a liberal arts major, part of what you're being trained to do is to put that narrative together.
So just last week, I was really excited to find a story on Yahoo Education that reported on majors that won't limit your career options. And according to the U.S. Department of Labor, I was thrilled to see that a bachelor's in psychology was #1 in terms of flexible career options, and communications was actually #2. And so I think that speaks somewhat to the flexibility of the liberal arts. Is that something that you've noticed as you see students graduate and find careers?
Well, I think when you say psychology and communication and those being flexible majors, I think probably what's common about those majors, and I think all majors within the liberal arts, whether it be history, philosophy, English, sociology, whatever it might be, they have some basic skills that they're all trying to teach. And psychology and communication are easy to sell, but I think it's about how the students learn to tell their story and sell the skills that they have. So I do think that the liberal arts degree is infinitely flexible, and in fact maybe more so than a student who perhaps, instead of going to Fisher, which is a liberal arts degree, and all students, regardless of their major, is going to have that liberal arts foundation, so have that flexibility. If they went to a school and didn't have that kind of background where the liberal arts were part of the core and those skills were part of the core, they would have a hard time if that career or that particular trade no longer existed. Right. So students in psychology, communications, English, all have some base level skills that they then have something to rely on, to pull upon in order to move forward. So absolutely, I think you're always going to have people who are employers who want someone who can communicate effectively, write clearly, think thoughtfully, critically, and come up with good questions in order to solve problems. And you can only get that if you've had sort of experience and developed the habits by doing those things. Right. So in depth in any of the liberal arts traditional disciplines is going to require that.
So interesting. So would you say that online courses have had an impact upon liberal arts education?
That is probably a 3-hour question.
Okay. But we only have about 5 minutes
and
left.
So I will certainly keep it close. I think that higher education is still trying to determine how online materials, digitally enhanced courses, whether they be fully online, hybrid, or simply traditional seat time courses in which digital materials and tools and educational technologies are brought in will work. There are elements of the liberal arts, there are elements of an undergraduate college experience which are inherently social and require face-to-face interactions, because students are not learning simply facts or structures. They're learning how to work with others who are different, to work in teams. And I think that what we will see as we go forward is that increasingly technologies involving online materials, online communications will be brought into the educational system. I don't think we're going to see, for instance, just traditional seat college educations purely online and there being a dichotomy. I think it's going to be much more of a spectrum, and certainly within the liberal arts, there are, depending on the individual course that you're taking, depending on the subject matter, it may very well be appropriate to have some courses taught online. Now, maybe those would be upper level courses of a different nature than an introductory freshman course. And so that's part of the grand experiment, because clearly in higher education we're all looking to keep costs down, to keep them reasonable, and that is certainly one of the tools, one of the arrows in the quiver that may allow us to do that.
Well, we've seen more and more colleges moving to online education, and Fisher's done that to a limited extent. But do you see the small liberal arts colleges like Fisher kind of holding the line on how much you can do? Because I don't know, from a communications perspective, obviously, I like to see students face to face. I like to have them interact and work in teams in my classes. And I don't know if I can I'll always be able to do that in a larger school, but at a small school.
Well, if thinking of institutions that I taught in the past, if I was teaching an introductory economics course of 300 students, I'm not sure how much difference it makes whether I'm online or teaching in that setting. For an institution such as Fisher, which our identity is very connected to the individualized attention that we can pay to students, and I think that as such, we're not going to lose that. We will certainly introduce online modules. There will be, as I said, greater use of educational technology. I think the process of becoming a maturing individual, a member of the community, a professional, an intellectual, for the traditional 18-year-old especially, is something that requires face-to-face interaction, which is not to say that with online courses, there are certainly levels of discussion that can take place. There are tools that there is the advantage that the entire class must become involved. You can't hide in an online class. And so I think that we will use some of those tools, but I don't see it in any sense replacing the face-to-face interactions that we offer at an institution such as Fisher.
And would you agree with that, Dr. Lowe?
Yeah, and I think the possibilities of online education for me are exciting when it comes to augmenting what we do. So it'd be something more like a hybrid or what they're now called a flipped classroom, which means you use technology outside the class in order to open class time to have more of the things that we value about being able to engage our students, more teamwork time, more sort of in-class engagement with the material, with the professor. Instead of lecturing, he or she might be engaged directly with the students on solving problems.
Right.
So I don't think we should shy away from it completely, but I think we have to think about how we can use those possibilities to augment what we do well.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is a great point. And I noticed that even in our group dynamics class, the students, they like that face-to-face. And when you try to get them to just communicate online, they say, well, we'd rather get together and do it. And we actually found that some of our students were meeting in the computer lab for some of the times when they were supposed to be individually working. So I think that says something about students at Fisher like that kind of personal attention, face-to-face interaction that we give them. So, well, I want to thank you both for coming in. It's been a really interesting discussion. And I think we're going to have to leave it there. So I'd like to say thank you to Dr. David Pate and Dr. Barbara Lowe of the School of Arts and Sciences at St. John Fisher College. And thank you for joining us today. For more information about a liberal arts education at St. John Fisher College, check out our website, www.sjfc.edu. I'm Lauren Vicker, and thank you for joining us today on our Community Forum.